Joel, tell me, what is it exactly that Turning Point Australia, the organisers who are involved in this, I guess there's no clear leader, but what's the goal? What's the appeal to university adults, students who are watching right now? How can they get involved, and how can they start holding their lecturers accountable for an intellectually honest education?
Well, first of all, one thing we have to recognize is that Turning Point USA is a very similar sort of branch that we've seen in the US. And they've often pitched the idea that it's not that students on campus are opposed to conservative ideas, it's that they've never heard them before. So the goal of Turning Point Australia is to pretty much do a very similar thing, is to really give people an insight into new ideas, not necessarily just conservative ideas, because I think that as things start to move on in our society, we're starting to find that the word conservative is becoming more synonymous with the word common sense. And I think we could all use a bit more of that. Now, coming to how can people get involved, and especially push back against some of the issues we're seeing in our universities. In the US, in recent years, $12 billion have been poured into universities in the US from foreign sources. Where is it coming from? Well, Harvard, for example, has received $1 billion from China itself, which is an incredibly troubling issue that we need to look at. In fact, there's 115 individuals in a number of different campuses, back in February we found out, that have been receiving monetary and non-monetary benefits from Chinese sources in the US. What's going on in Australia? Well, we need to know. And how can we know if we don't have people and boots on the ground in our Australian universities? That's the goal we're trying to strive towards. So the best way people can really get involved from a campus perspective is reach out to us. Send us a message on our newly formed soft launch online on our Facebook page, and reach out to myself or Barclay, because this is an issue that goes beyond partisan lines. And that's the same reason why you've got lovely people like Senator Pauline Hanson teaming up with a guy like Drew Pavlo, who would vote for Bernie Sanders if he was in America, teaming up because they recognize this is an existential issue, and everyone gets trained at the universities pretty much. And that's pretty much the goal of Turning Point Australia. We need this change.
Senator Hanson, this is news to me, so very organic. You're teaming up with Drew. What does that look like? Drew Pavlu, who is targeted by the University of Queensland administration for what amounts to seemingly frivolous complaints, which 1,000 other students get away with. What's the nature of your alliance with that leftist student?
Well, there was no real alliance with it. I heard about Drew's case and I was on an interview with him, and I totally agree with him. He was wrongly targeted, he was persecuted with it, and the courts have come down in support of the consulate, which I think is totally wrong. It shouldn't happen. So Drew was persecuted because of his views. Now, I think what Barclay and what Joel are doing, I think it's fantastic. Good on you guys. Standing up for your rights, and you see that it is wrong what is happening in universities. Now, I have been speaking about this for some time. When I was in Parliament about 96, 97, I had two university lecturers come to see me, and they said, Pauline, we actually are told what classes we can actually give, and we're told we've got to have a left leaning. They said, we think it's wrong, but we can't do anything about it because we're being threatened, we will lose our jobs. So the universities over this period of time have been indoctrinating our students to the Marxist way of thinking. And if you don't think their way, I'm sure the guys will actually clarify it if I've got it wrong, but if you don't have their way of thinking, you get marked down. So it's been happening, this way of teaching our kids, and they're led along this path that it's not right. We don't have a balance there in our universities. And Joel's completely right. I'm gobsmacked about what money is being put into the universities in America by the Chinese. And of course, why do they want that? Because they have an agenda there. And that's what we have to ensure, that it doesn't happen here in Australia. And that's my job, to try and keep on top of it, to protect the Australian students, that we have true democracy and people have a right to a difference of opinion should be taught. And people should actually use their own thought process to work it out, not been brainwashed into one way of thinking.
Absolutely.
That's 100% right. That's 100% right, Paul. And if you don't mind me jumping in, Dave, the just this week I heard a student get marked down for an essay that she wrote because it didn't suit the party line. So that leads them to follow advice from people like Ben Shapiro, who say, well, you just need to get through university, write what they want you to write, and at least you will know their arguments better than they know them themselves. But later you can debate them. But I don't think this is an acceptable way of universities operating. It's supposed to be an open place for open dialogue.
But see, when we have this legislation that comes through Parliament, what I do is then put pressure on the minister to bring these issues to their notice, and then we actually then have to, through our legislation, George will agree with this. From my point of view anyway, it's you're the government. But we actually need to put pressure on the universities because they get over $18 billion of government funding to the universities. So we have a right then to say what should happen in the universities. They can't have it carte blanche and run the universities if it's not what we want for our democracy.
We've got a picture there from the Turning Point Australia Facebook page. So let me encourage you, if you're a university student on any campus in the nation, get connected with these guys. If you're open to ideas that you might disagree with, if you're open to ideas that your lecturer or your professor might disagree with,